Braves get a World Series ring after 26-year drought. The NFL trade deadline has come and gone. Who wins? Who loses? Raiders cut rugs. All that and more coming up on Fourth and Just Us. Welcome to another edition of Fourth and Just Us. I'm your host, Leonard Moore, with our amazing co-host, Kevin A.D. Anderson. What's up, Kev? Luke Fedlam. What's up, Kevin? What's up, Luke?
Hey, what's up, Doc? How are you?
How they treating you in Columbus?
Man, fantastic. Just got back into town. It's nice 28 degrees when I drove the kids to school this morning. So, yeah, we're back here, baby.
Awesome. Good to see you. Kevin, how they treating you in Colorado?
Cold, very cold.
Okay. Well, man, send some of that cold to Texas. We surely could use it. Welcome again to another edition of Fourth and Just Us. I'm your host, Leonard Moore, along with Kevin A.D. Anderson and Luke Fedlam. Every week we come and we discuss things at the intersection of race, sports, and politics. And as usual, got a lot going on this week. But first, last night, the Braves win the World Series after a 26-year drought and just 1 year after the death of Hank Aaron. Kevin Anderson, our resident baseball expert, what does this win say about for the Atlanta Braves?
Well, they overcame a lot. I mean, halfway during the season, they had a losing record. And then they came back and won 44 games the second half of the season. Plus, they added 4 outfielders to their lineup prior to the halfway through the season. But the other thing is that they lost a lot of pitching, and so did Houston. But, what they did yesterday and what they did through the series, I think they had 9-10 home runs, and Houston only had 2, and usually it's the other way around. My heart goes out to Dusty because I really wanted him to get that ring. And so, now next year he's got the nucleus coming back, and hopefully they can keep it together and they could play for it again next year.
Right. I'll say this, and Luke, I want your opinion on this. Did Houston get sort of what they had coming to them because of the cheating scandal a couple years earlier?
Well, I'll tell you this, at the end of the day, like, karma is what karma is, right? So whether you want to say that, hey, it was karma, or whether you want to just say, hey, the Braves were the it factor. They were the team here coming in the playoffs. Whatever it was, the Braves did their thing. First time in 26 years, it really was good to see. Because as I said last week or the week before, listen, man, I was pulling for the Braves. I was a fan of theirs back in 91 when they went worst to first. And then now, this season, based on, think about what Kevin said, right? Like going into early August, they were still under 500. Injuries that they experienced over the summer, and they still came back and won it over, some really good teams out there in Major League Baseball this year.
It's funny, Luke, you mentioned that. I think I was a Braves fan when I was a kid because I remember when we first got cable TV, TBS showed all the Braves games. So yeah. I was a big Dale Murphy fan, big Rafael Ramirez fan. I knew their whole lineup back in the day, but Dale Murphy was by far, my favorite player. Kevin, let's talk about the politics in Atlanta because, there was controversy when the Braves left the city and moved way out to North Cobb County. And in many ways, they said they really moved out to many where their white supporters were. So if you think about that dynamic and then the whole controversy surrounding the tomahawk chop and how the Major League Baseball commissioner defended it, has their World Series ring been tarnished a little bit by the broader politics that surrounds Atlanta?
Well, Doc, it depends who you talk to. I'm sure those people that attended the game last night and was rooting for Atlanta, there's no tarnish in this. That trophy shines bright. But, if you look at it, there's no black folks in the stands. When they do a shot of the stands, there's no black folks out there. And to be honest with you, most of their lineup is Latinos and Hispanics, and that I don't think they do have a African-American on the team. And if you look at Major League Baseball, that's the trend it's going. So, it's much deeper than just the Atlanta Braves and the tomahawk chop.
Okay. Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's interesting, right? Because Kevin talks about kind of the makeup of the team now, and you mentioned some of the players that you fell in love with when you started watching. When I started watching, it was Terry Pendleton, Fred McGriff, right? The Crime Dog, like, I mean, all those
Right.
guys, right? And it was a different team then. And so, yeah, I think it is different. I mean, but to your point though, I don't know whether it tarnishes the win, right? I mean, for the team, the organization, the front office, they won. They won that World Series. They deserve the ring. They deserve the shine that they get. But I do think that there's this broader question around kind of this cultural appropriations and what we're taking from different cultures and using it, in ways that many people don't take the time to recognize kind of the significance. And I will say along those lines, because you brought up, what the commissioner has said and all that, and I've read what the commissioner said, and it's frustrating sometimes when you have, professional sports teams or league leadership that says, well, we spoke to the Native American community in this area and they said it's okay, so we can do this. I mean, that to me,
Right.
throw that in the garbage. Like that
Yeah.
is so short-sighted and not really, kind of reflective of just the broader issues that come with that.
Right. And it was funny
But look,
because
there is an argument there. You look at Florida State and the Seminoles, and from what I understand, the Seminole Nation respects and wants the Florida State to embrace that logo and that nickname. So, I mean, where do you go from here? If they take the Indian away from the Braves, is it okay for them to have the name the Braves and take away the tomahawk chop? I mean, those are the questions we have to ask, and that's where we are as a society.
and it's funny, and I haven't done any research into, using ethnic groups as caricatures or mascots. But if you think about it, they basically chose, an ethnic group as a mascot. And for 80, 90 years, that's been okay. But I think the thing in Atlanta, Kevin is asking them to change the name of the team. They're just saying, can you do away with what they find is a very, very offensive gesture? All right. So congratulations to the Atlanta World Series. They also had a mayoral election last night. Kasim Reed was running again for mayor. I don't think he won it. He may be in a runoff, but a lot going on in hot Atlanta, as they used to say. Switching gears, an unfortunate story out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Henry Ruggs, the second-year wide receiver out of the University of Alabama, apparently was in a vicious car accident where he was driving impaired, critically injured his girlfriend who was in his Corvette with him. But unfortunately, hit a passenger hit another motorist from behind, and the car went up in flames, and that person burned to death or died. What message does this send, or what message should we be really sending now to these high-profile athletes, Kevin, who have a ton of money? And Ruggs is in Vegas, where he is surrounded by distractions and temptations.
Well, first of all, my condolences go out to all the families, because everybody's family is affected by this. His family, the person who passed family, the passenger, and it's just sad. But the question is, I mean, how can we get these young men and young women to use better judgment? Particularly if you look at the NFL, when they have a phone number to call, if they have been drinking or whatever they've been doing, can come pick them up and take them home instead of driving. Before we got on, we talked about people feeling invincible. There's a certain point where, where does good sense come in and outweighs being invincible? And now, I mean, it's tragic, but there's 3 lives that are totally going to be affected for the rest of their lives, and it's all negative.
And the Raiders cut him, and they said by the next morning he will be arraigned. But according to Nevada law, there is no probation for people who commit vehicular homicide while driving under impaired. Luke?
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, I agree. Condolences to everyone involved. It is truly just a devastating situation all around. And when you think about it, from the Raiders organization, this is yet one more thing, right, that the players are on the team are having to deal with, because this was their teammate, right, their brother that they played with that is going through just a catastrophic, situation. And don't get me wrong, that's not, defending his actions per se, but saying like he has to deal with this as well. And yes, he has to deal with the consequences and repercussions of his actions. That being said, Kevin is right. There are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of resources available. I mean, there's Uber available. There's the NFL and the teams have their own security and other options there. the decisions that young people are making in this feeling of invincibility has really it's challenging because it leads them into a very difficult situation. He was a first round pick. I think it was number 12 overall in 2020's draft, and so significant money that he made. It was a very nice car. You want to go out and drive your car and show it off, but it was 3:30 in the morning, 3:40 in the morning. That it was going to be. That was not good. And so ultimately, I think we have to make sure that we're engaging these young people in proper decision making and helping them think through this and the options that they have available.
But is it easy for us three to sit up here? I mean, I don't know how much money y'all had at 22, but hell, I ain't got Henry Ruggs' money now and probably never will have it. But is it easy for us to sit up here and say, got to be more disciplined, use Uber? I mean, he's got 20, came into the league at 21. He's 22. So are we basically asking them to be a whole lot mature beyond their years? Kevin.
Now, hey, Doc, I think it's different, though. I mean, there weren't these educational opportunities and people weren't talking to you about don't drive drunk and things like this. The NFLPA, the NFL, the NBA, everybody talks about this. They bring in veterans to talk to them about this. They know they have this service available to them. So it is somewhat different. It's easier, I believe, just to get on that phone and make that phone call, say, I can't drive home. Right. What's so difficult about that?
But Kevin,
Mama said that nothing good happens after 12 o'clock.
But Kevin, man, it's our manhood. Remember when we were that young and we may go drink and say, man, let me get the keys. You're like, no, I'm good. And I think when you're that age, man, Luke, you can, tell me if I'm right or wrong. There is this sign of, no, I'm good. I got it. Nobody wants to admit when they drunk. You know what I mean?
Well,
nobody wants to admit that. Go ahead, Luke.
Well, no. I wish I could comment on it because I'm close to that age. Unfortunately, those days have swiftly passed. But no. We think about what we're asking. We're asking someone who maybe is already intoxicated to then give up their keys, right? And that just is odd to even consider, right? But the thing is the planning, because to your point, yes, it is easy for us to sit here and to talk about it and to say you should have done this, or you should have done this, or you should have done that. Right. But when you think about it, to whom much is given, much is required. And there's a lot that's given to these young men. And so there's a lot that should be required. And to your point earlier, yes, the NFLPA, the league itself, right, other resources, teams and organizations, bring people in to help them understand the impact of the decisions that they're making. And to your point, there is no probation on this. So this is going to be something that if he doesn't plead to it, to a lesser charge or plead to something and get a plea deal, there's going to be a trial where he's going to have to deal with this. And the minimum sentence on this is 2 to 20. So this is a significant issue. There are consequences and repercussions to your actions.
And like I said, we don't know what what his impairment level, what level he was at. That may come out, in the next couple of days. We don't, like I said, we don't know to what level he was impaired. Somebody said he may have just had a couple beers and just may have been distracted, But you must be going a very, very high rate of speed if you hit somebody from the back and that car immediately catches on fire. Real quick before we move to the next topic, Luke, you do a lot of work with NFL teams, and I understand you just came back from speaking with the NFL team, talking to their rookies recently. What do you try to get across to those rookies, and do they listen?
Yeah, the conversation that I was having with the NFL team was around decision making. This one was decision making and leadership. And, it's just like anything else, just like student athletes, professional athletes. Some of them are going to be engaged and they want those resources and they want to talk and learn more and take that to make them better. Others, it's just, somebody else coming in. All I want to do is focus on football and getting my next check and moving on. Right. That's just how society is. But decision making is one of the pillars that the NFL has for their player engagement side. And so we get an opportunity to talk to these players just about thinking how to make decisions. Because I know we've got more to talk about, but I want to say one thing. Yeah. We teach athletes, we ingrain in their head for them to make split-second decisions in their sport every single day since they were kids. And then when it comes time for life decisions, we don't take the time to help them understand how to slow that process down for these big life decisions that can have significant consequences. Right. We have got to start teaching at an earlier age the balance between, yes, you got to make these split-second decisions in your sport. We don't want you to be indecisive. We want you to go and be aggressive in what you do. But at the same time, we've got to teach you how to slow down and make that informed and educated decision off the field so that you don't get into tough situations.
Awesome. So we'll like Kevin said, we'll just pray for those families impacted. Ruggs, his girlfriend, and I believe they had a daughter, and they went to high school together. What makes this all the more tragic is that Ruggs, when he was 17 years of age, one of his basketball teammates died in a car accident on the way to their state tournament game. And he said that every time he scores a touchdown, he throws up 3 fingers in the air for his friend who died in a car accident. And just so tragic in many ways to see now Ruggs being affected, but this time him being the driver of a vehicle. Staying with the NFL cut deadline, the NFL trade deadline has come and gone. Deshaun Watson. I live in Austin. I don't know what Deshaun Watson is doing. Does he go to the facility every day? Is he just sitting at home getting a paycheck? But he wasn't traded after all the rumors to maybe him going to Miami. He is still a member of the Houston Texans. So, Kevin, give me your take on Deshaun Watson. I want to throw this out there. Some people are suggesting that, there's a double standard in the NFL. Deshaun Watson hasn't been placed on the NFL commissioner's exempt list, meaning he can get traded and he can play, although 26 allegations of sexual misconduct or sexual harassment. But on the flip side, John Gruden is forced to resign after 11-year-old emails are leaked. So, Kevin, help us understand that a little bit.
Well, the NFL spends a lot of money investigating all these kind of allegations. So with him not being traded, with Miami and a couple other teams needing a quarterback, there must be something to this. Because if not, I'm sure he would have been traded and he would be playing right now. The other thing, though, is that Deshaun has the union behind him and he has certain protections where John Gruden did not. He didn't have the union behind him. And, what he did was they made an example out of him. Now, we don't know this, but I'm pretty sure that he didn't walk away without any of that $100 million. So There was probably a negotiation there as well. But, I think it's 2 different situations. Nothing's been proven yet against Deshaun where, the evidence against Gruden was right there and it was made public. So I think it is kind of 2 different situations, and that as this goes on and we find out what allegations are true and not true, the true story will come out about what Deshaun did and didn't do.
Luke, is there a double standard here? Has cancel culture cost John Gruden his career while the woke left or Black Lives Matter crew is engaging in some level of black protectionism around Deshaun Watson?
Listen, there is not this double. There may be a double standard in the NFL, but this is not the example to use to highlight that, right? We've got a situation where we had John Gruden, who, in his own words, said what he said. Misogynistic, homophobic, racist. It was right in front of us. This is very different than the situation with Deshaun Watson, which is that we have allegations, right?
26 of them, though, Luke. Luke,
okay,
26 of them, bro. 26.
I hear
Luke,
you.
Luke, you are an attorney. Come on, man.
Yes, that's exactly why. I am an attorney, and that's exactly why I'm saying they're allegations. They are not. There is nothing that's been proven against him, right? So we can say there's 26 allegations. There, if there's smoke, there's fire. Okay, well, prove the fire. Show me the fire, right? So in this situation, we've got Deshaun Watson that. He should not be. What should he do? Just be fired?
No,
are we
all I'm saying is, Luke, we defend Deshaun because we like him. That's okay. We like him. We like his image and we like what he represented. And so now we're presented with this information and we don't know what to do with it.
Well, you're right. We don't know what to do with it because we don't know what happened. We don't know the facts. We don't know what happened, right? There's so much that we could go back and forth on here, but I'm telling you. Let's let the process be the process, right? He'll go through the process. He becomes a free agent at the end of this season, right? So depending on what happens in the process, then, maybe he'll end up playing on a team or maybe he'll, maybe not. Maybe his career is over because of this, but we've got to at least let it go through the process. Now, when we look at Gruden,
hold on a minute, Luke. Hold on a minute, Luke. The Raiders didn't let Ruggs go through the process. They cut him immediately. There was no process with Ruggs.
Okay, this is true. But at the same time, with Ruggs, we're talking about a team can release a player for any reason that they want to. And that release comes from the team leadership, front office, et cetera, deciding what are they going to do. So in this instance, right, let's just be clear. The Texans could turn around and release Watson tomorrow. Right,
Okay.
they can release him if they want to, because ultimately trade deadline passed. We don't have to worry about him going to playing, somewhere else. He can be released, and ultimately, if he's released, he can get picked up by a team. But at the same time with Ruggs, the team decided to release him, and I don't know any reason. There's no inside information here, right? It's just us speculating,
Right.
as that Monday morning quarterback. But they released him because he was charged with DUI resulting in homicide and reckless driving. And regardless of the ultimate outcome, this young man is going to be impacted for a long time. So whether they released him because they said, hey, we think he did wrong, or they released him because, hey, he's going to be a distraction to the team, because if we don't release him, we as an organization are going to face, questions, and our teammates, the players are going to face questions about this and how this should be handled or not. They released him to end the distraction.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I know we can go back and forth all day. Staying in the NFL, my Cleveland Browns, I had the fortunate, I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, Kevin. I was at the Browns-Steelers game on Sunday, and I found myself on every offensive play, Kevin, watching Odell Beckham run routes. And it seemed as if he knew no matter what he did, he was never getting the ball. Kevin, how do you respond to Odell Beckham Sr. releasing an 11-minute Instagram clip of several 30, 40 plays where Odell Beckham was open, but Baker Mayfield did not get him the ball? I don't know if you had a chance to catch that, Kevin. Is Odell Beckham Sr. just being a good father, or is he overstepping his boundaries?
Well, he's trying to be a good father, but here's the deal. Everybody wants to win, and Cleveland has an opportunity to finish well in their division and in the league and win. So I don't think that they were just not seeing him and throwing him the ball, because, they all want to win. They all have money tied to this, championships and everything else. So, that's the question. For him to think that this was purposely done, I find that hard to believe with everything that they're playing for. So, I think that's a father's love, but I think that, that's all you could say about it, because I think that, he overshot his boundaries, and that he shouldn't be, I wouldn't be doing what he's doing.
Luke, Odell Beckham was targeted twice on Sunday. He had one catch for 6 yards. The other ball was thrown way behind him. In comparison, a few weeks ago, Aaron Rodgers targeted Devontae Adams 17 times. How come Baker cannot give OBJ the ball? What is the problem?
I don't know what the problem is. Some people say that, Baker just, that there's something between them or whatever it might be, because he was, I didn't take the whole 11 minutes, but I did watch a little bit just to see some of the routes, and he's open. But here's the thing, though. The Browns, so you've got two star players here, right? And star, I'll use that term. Maybe Baker Mayfield is turning into a star. In Cleveland, they like him, whatever. You when you think about it, the team hasn't said like whether they're going to commit to either one, right? Baker doesn't have his new deal or his extension.
Right.
So at the same time, it's like, well, let's hold on to both pieces to determine kind of where we are. Like you said, what's going to give us the best opportunity down the line to win games. And Cleveland has opportunities to win games, but they should have won that game on Sunday. Sorry, Doc.
Yeah, man. I know we struggle. I don't think Baker's the guy, man, but but only those of us from Cleveland can talk bad about Baker. We can do it. Can't nobody else do it. Sticking in the NFL, Von Miller traded to the Los Angeles Rams. And some people have said that basically the Rams have they're all in on winning now. They have very few draft picks coming up in the next couple of years. Kevin, what is your philosophy on teams like the Rams saying, to hell with it. We're trying to win now. We're not trying to stockpile draft picks. We want to win right now. And we will mortgage the future to do it. Is it worth it?
Well, I think last night we saw that the Braves went out and they made some deals and they brought in 4 people that were vital to them winning. And so, it was immediate for them. And particularly, to have the foresight where they were halfway during the season and to be able to put that together and then win a world championship. I think that's what the Rams are doing. They came up short not too long ago, and I think Vaughn is a piece of that defense that's really going to help them because you have Arnold and you have Ramsey there, and now they have an elite defense to go along with that offense. But the question is with Deshaun Jackson leaving, they still need some wide receivers because they're injured there, and they need a long threat. So there's still some questions about do they have a complete team to make that Super Bowl run?
I mean, they look pretty good to me. I don't like the Rams, and I don't really like McVay, but they look pretty good to me. Luke, when Von Miller, I guess he had a press conference or an interview, he got rather emotional, the fact that he was being traded. So even though some people say he's going to a better team, you know, when you talk to these NFL guys, what do they experience emotionally when they get traded? Because it's probably the first time in their life, in many ways, Luke, where they aren't wanted. You ever have any conversations with guys about getting traded and what it's like?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had conversations with guys about getting traded, getting released, getting cut, all of that. And you know, different guys, it's everybody's different, right? All players are different in terms of kind of what affects them. But when you look at it, it's like, you know, Von Miller in particular, he committed a lot to Denver. I mean, he was all in. He was the face, you know, one of the faces of their organization, if not the face of their organization. You know, phenomenal asset to the team. I mean, I was reading a story earlier that their GM, George Patton, like his son won't talk to him now after trading Von Miller. Like, I mean, he was like, fans loved him. So there's all that comes with that. And the other piece too, to give folks kind of the real side is, again, and I will always say this, players are people. So as people, when you think about it, you have established yourself in the community. You have, made a home, bought a home for yourself. You have established, you know, whether it's family and other family that's come to live in the same town, like that you have committed. And when you feel like someone doesn't necessarily or isn't committed to you, or that you now have to start over somewhere else, that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes.
You know, and I think Julio Jones went through it last year when he got traded from Atlanta. But it is a tough pill. Also, our last topic for the NFL, we talk about injuries. A lot of injuries on Sunday. Jameis Winston tore his ACL. Derrick Henry broke his foot. And I was listening to a radio show with Chris Broussard and Rob Parker the other night, and they had Rod Woodson on, former Steelers player. And they were just asking Rod Woodson about all the injuries in the NFL. And Rod said, you know, the injuries now are a result of one thing. He said, there are so many injuries now because the players are training year-round and they never take any time off. Kevin, what do you think about that? You know, are we wearing these players out? And does it start at a much younger age where we're asking kids to specialize as early as 7, 8, or 9?
You know, I think it starts much younger. And as you're saying, Doc, the thing is now, you know, people specialize in one sport. When I was growing up, because you guys are youngsters, I mean, we played everything. You ran track, you played baseball, you played basketball, football, whatever it was, you played whatever season it was, and it developed different muscles. So, you know, I mean, you were well-rounded and in good shape. Now, I mean, with all the money that's going in here, travel ball and everything else, I mean, you go to these teams, and if you want to play baseball, they tell you that you can't play any other sport if you want to be on the team. Plus, the other thing is the cost of it is that, you know, we'll go back and talk about baseball a little bit. You know, most people, most black kids can't afford to play baseball. I mean, with those travel teams and everything else, it's very expensive. So, but, you know, in the collective bargaining agreement with the NFLPA, I mean, there are certain rules, and they have cameras and everything else in all these facilities where they can only work out so much. So, you know, they can't go over that. I think it goes deeper than this because now if you want to be an elite athlete and you want to have longevity in your sport, you have to work out year round. So I think that, you know, it's not just the leagues that are promoting this, but I mean, anybody who wants to be anybody, who wants to have that longevity and make that kind of money they can make, I mean, you got to stay on top of it. You know, the thing is, though, football is a violent sport, and it's always had, you know, injuries, particularly if you look at it, if you go back in the day with the Jack Tatums and everything else, that was football because there wasn't, you know, no targeting, there wasn't this, that, and the other. With all the rules now, there should be a diminish in some of the injuries because basically next you're going to have people putting on flags, and it's going to be flag football because you can't touch a quarterback anymore.
No, it's brutal. Luke, what do some of your clients say about the pressure to work out year round?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, right? Because there's a group of guys, former NFL players that are in the area that I play poker with every now and then, and we were playing, watching Monday Night Football a couple weeks ago, and they were showing Derrick Henry working out and some of the unique workouts and things along those lines. So in addition to the fact that athletes are specializing in, one particular sport at an early age, their training is also, physical training is becoming highly specialized, right? And so you create this very fine line where you're trying to make someone the fastest possible. And one of the players that we were sitting there playing cards with, he was just like, I said, what was this training like, that you're seeing here compared to what you did, when you were playing? And they were like, I never jumped, into little hoops and things like that. I never used chains for stuff. Like, he was like, when do I got to do that on the football field, right? We worked hard. And I think that there's something to that. We are trying to create, right, the most specialized specimen of a human being to be the perfect kind of athlete. We need it to be the fastest, all of this, the most agile. And in doing that, I think that our muscles and our bodies aren't necessarily responding the best to that in the long run. But football is a violent sport, and I think we're seeing that on the field.
I appreciate something Devontae Smith said, the Heisman Trophy winner from Alabama, who's with the Eagles now. All throughout like the combine, they were talking about he's skinny, he weighs 165 pounds, 160 pounds. You know what he said? He said, we're not lifting weights. We playing weightlifting contests. We playing football, So it's good to see people like Devontae Smith be like, you know what, hey, this is just who I am and this is how I'm going to be. I've been successful. He's from Amite, Louisiana. I've been successful my whole life at this size, and I'm not going to be some workout guru. I'm going to go out there and run my routes, get open, and try to get some touchdowns. All right, switching gears to the college football playoff. The College Football Playoff Committee released their first rankings the other day. Any surprises? Georgia number 1, Alabama 2, Sparty, Michigan State 3, the Oregon Ducks 4, the Ohio State Buckeyes 5, and the University of Cincinnati Bearcats number 6. The Power 5 school, and there's some question if Cincinnati can move up. Luke, what is your take on Cincinnati's chances to get in the college football playoff?
So, okay, if you've been tuning in the last few weeks, you know where I'm going to start off with. I hear you talking about Cincinnati, but
you're talking about Wake Forest.
I got to recognize my Wake Forest demon.
They don't even know where Wake Forest is, man.
Well, it is funny, right? Because a lot of people be
Wake Forest is a football school.
Hey, listen, we're 8-0. We made the top 10 in the college football playoff rankings, so I'm excited about that. Now, I'll say with Cincinnati, what is interesting is, yes, they keep winning, but who are they winning against? And in the teams, when you look at a Navy, you look at, Tulane, and those victories, they got the wins over some really subpar teams, but their wins were not impressive wins, and we know that
they beat Notre Dame in South Bend. They beat Notre Dame in South Bend now, Luke.
That's right, and they're number 6.
Okay.
Right. I mean, and that's it, right? I mean, they got recognized for that. That's great. But when you look at, let's talk Big Ten, right? I mean, Michigan State, Michigan, like battling against each other. Penn State, Ohio State. We got, Ohio State still has Michigan to go and still has Penn State to go. Michigan State to go. That's a lot, right? These are teams that are strength of schedule. The teams that they're playing, that matters. I mean, same thing in the SEC. So I give props. Cincinnati number 6. That's great. Tough. They don't have the strength of schedule I think that these other schools do.
Kevin, should Alabama be ranked number 2, considering that they lost to Texas A&M and the fact that they beat a weak Florida team? And is this thing shaping up again where if Georgia meets Alabama in the SEC championship game, Alabama beats them, and we'll have 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff? Is that the way this is shaping up, Kevin?
Yeah, Doc. If Alabama beats Georgia, those 2 will be in. But the question is, you look at Alabama's loss, Texas A&M, some days they're good, some days they aren't. I think the second half of the season they're getting stronger. If you look at Oregon, though, Pac-12 is weak. I mean, tell me the next best school in the Pac-12.
But Oregon beat Ohio State in Columbus.
Yeah, yes, they did, and without their 2 best defensive players.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But, that's why we play the game. Any Saturday you can get beat. And I don't think it diminishes what Ohio State's done now because they've gotten better over the season. They had the freshman at quarterback. He's playing well. They've had new running backs. They have the best wide receivers in the country. The defense was young, but I think now that they're getting into a system where they're even playing better. The thing is the American Conference with Cincinnati, the conference commissioner said some things that, he's just fighting the system. Well, we need to be realistic. We'll go back. Notre Dame is not Notre Dame this year as they have been, and that Indiana got beat by Maryland, and they're both 2-4 in the conference. So you got to look at that. Now, there's no crystal ball, and scheduling is difficult because you don't know who's going to be good a couple years from now. So right. That's part of the issue that we have to talk about the scheduling, and it's not the fault of people scheduling these games because you never know who's going to be good and who's not going to be good.
When you were AD at Maryland, would you schedule Cincinnati right now if you were AD at Maryland?
No, you're absolutely right, Doc. No way.
What is Luke Fickell or the Power 5 AD supposed to do? Because the big school, group of five, the big schools, they have nothing to gain by playing a Cincinnati. If Maryland plays Cincinnati and beats them, you're supposed to beat them. But if you lose to Cincinnati, all hell's going to break loose. So, put on your AD hat, Kevin. How are they supposed to get the big games?
They're not, because the Power 5 is going to separate at some point in time because, the money's too great and them sharing what they share now when they're going to have a potential, particularly with a new contract coming up for the CFP, the wealthier are going to get wealthier, and that the other people are going to have to look at how do we make this thing work for us, because it's just not going to be the way it is. Because, you guys brought it up, and we've talked about it today. Sunday is going to be Saturday before too long.
Right. Absolutely.
We're talking about the NIL. We're talking about paying players and everything else. If we do this, then it's going to be a different situation.
Luke, you know what? Whenever Kevin talks about paying players, his voice changes. So you know where he stands politically on the issue. But before we go to NIL, Luke, I envision a scenario, Luke, where come January or come December, you got Alabama and Georgia are in the playoff, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Oklahoma will be in because I think they're going to go undefeated through the remainder of the Big 12 and Big 12 championship. And I really believe that fourth spot, Luke, is going to come down to our alma mater and the University of Oregon. Under any circumstances, is there any way Ohio State should get in above Oregon if they both have one loss?
Absolutely.
Oh, come on, man.
No, absolutely.
Head to head is what matters. Go ahead.
Head to head, but that was week 2.
It doesn't matter.
Listen, head-to-head was week 2. What then happened for the rest of the season? Because why? The college football playoff wants the top teams at the time they're going to play, right? So we're talking about if Ohio State navigates through, right, and they end up with, wins over Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State. You mean to tell me then that they shouldn't get in over an Oregon that's played who? Besides Ohio State.
Oregon that came to the Horseshoe and beat Ohio State handily.
If they would have done that, if they would have come to the Horseshoe and beat Ohio State at the end of November, at the beginning, end of November, later in the season, yes. Week 2? No, get out of here. Stop.
Luke, that's homerism,
I love you.
Man,
I love you, but I'll never give you that. And
Luke,
this is our alma mater.
That's homerism. If your daughter was playing volleyball and they beat a team head to head, but yet and still, when it comes time to the playoffs, they put the other team over, you would raise hell. You'd be like, we beat them a couple months ago. All right.
Of course I would. Of course I would. But that's what we do.
Deal, though. The committee is looking at, and what they primarily focus on is strength of schedule. There's no question, and you said this 2 weeks in a row, that the Big Ten probably has the strongest conference this year. And I mean, if you look at that division, Ohio State's playing, they got to play Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State. I mean, they've got to play some great teams. And so if they run it out, I believe, and Oregon and them finish the same, that their strength of schedule, makes them a better team.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin.
Ohio State struggled with Penn State. I was at the game. Penn State was in that game well into the fourth quarter. And this is a Penn State who lost to Illinois the previous week, who couldn't get a 2-point conversion. Let me move on.
Well,
All
who
right.
won?
Hey,
Let's
wait, no. I think Penn State's problem against Illinois was they were looking towards Ohio State.
agree.
I think
Okay.
that was the biggest problem that they had, and that had they been that team that played Ohio State, they would have beat Illinois. So I think that was a problem. But I'm going to drop this real quick. That tarnished James Franklin from, I believe, Ohio State. I mean, from the USC job and Louisiana State job.
I can see that. So he cost himself some money not being able to get 2 yards, huh? All right, let's move on. Sticking with college football, let's talk about the name, image, and likeness. Name, image, and likeness. And has it proven to be a distraction? Is the NIL a distraction or a hustle? Spencer Rattler, former Oklahoma quarterback, projected to be the #1 pick in the NFL draft next year, signed a big-time NIL deal, a very prominent deal. He's on the bench now. Second string to Caleb Williams, a quarterback from D.C., who didn't even play last year because of COVID. And also the quarterback from Clemson, DJ Ugulalele. He signed a big NIL deal, but Dabo Swinney, Clemson's been struggling, and Dabo Swinney said, we got to look at the whole offense. So, Luke, is it a coincidence that the two most popular football players who signed these NIL deals are struggling?
No. Listen, players struggle, period. Now, here's the thing. The question of is NIL a distraction? Yeah, it could be. Absolutely. Guess what? So are other things that the student athletes go through are distractions. So, I mean, is it a distraction for them to take, an hour of their time to, when the quarterback at Clemson, DJ, when he, did the Dr. Pepper commercial, it was like an hour of his time where they came to him and he went in and did it, right? Is that a distraction?
Yeah.
I mean, when he's doing, when any player is getting on their phone and putting out a tweet or a social media post, is that a distraction? I mean, I guess it could be, but so is everything else. So is being a college student. Think of all the distractions from being a college student. So, to say it's a distraction, I think is too far. And the question about whether or not this is a hustle, listen, at the end of the day, I'm going to firmly believe, and I will say on this show and on every other platform I can get on, that name, image, and likeness and student athletes being able to contract with third parties to earn compensation for the use of their name, image, and likeness, they absolutely should be able to do that and have the rights to be able to do that every single day.
Well, let me ask you this, Kevin. Do you think coaches now will hold up Spencer Rattler and Gugalele as Exhibit A? With these guys, they got into that NIL stuff, and guess what? It was a distraction. It took, it took the focus off their game, and look where they're at right now. Do you think coaches will suggest that, Kevin, as a way to discourage kids from getting major NIL deals?
So, Doc, you did a good 2 times. You said the last name. You did a great job. Can you do it 3 times?
I can read it. Ugulalele. And me, man, I'm big. I don't want to shorten nobody's name. I don't want to give nobody a nickname. I want to pronounce it no matter how many syllables it is. Go ahead, Kevin.
Great job. So you know what? I'm all for this because it's a crapshoot. We've seen this, that, these kids come up and they come out of high school, they're 5-star, they're going to get an NIL deal and everything else. So, and then they don't pan out. Well, who's the loser in that? It's not the kid, because the kid got the money. So, it's been this way. So the difference between this and being a professional, the advertisers and the people who select these people, they know these players are stars, and they have star power, and they have, the wherewithal to have them be able to make money for them. When you go and you have this kid coming straight out of high school, you don't know what's going to happen. They're 18 to 22-year-olds. They haven't played at this level of competition. So, it's all there. So more power to these kids. Now, the thing is that those who don't make it and get these kind of deals, I just hope they're good with their money and they invest it wisely, because this is probably going to be their only opportunity as an athlete to make any money.
Yeah, and I just want to say in there real quick, because Kevin mentioned star power, and let's be honest, right? Brands are looking for the impressions. They're looking for, athletes that will be talked about, that are successful, etc. But when we have an athlete who's not successful, think about how much Spencer and DJ have been talked about, right? Even in the fact of being benched and things like that, there is still, publicity and press around them.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see, Luke, the return on investment that some of these companies have gotten Some people are suggesting that, yeah, just because this guy may be the big time quarterback at State University, that, it's not the same as a professional athlete endorsing products. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the big brands, when we're talking big brands, they're looking for a return on their investment. They're looking for impressions. They're looking for market penetration. They're looking to be able to engage a consumer that otherwise, but for that athlete, they may not have been able to get in front of. So that's what they're looking for. But let's also be clear. Name, image, and likeness goes even beyond just the big national brands, right? And few, all right, there are a handful of athletes that have national kind of NIL deals, but when we look at all of the other athletes that have local deals or deals that happen to be because of a booster of a school, right, or a donor to the athletic club that wants, athletic department that wants to be able to be around and have access to these players or be able to say, I did this deal with this particular player, they aren't always looking for that return on investment, right? They're looking, or rather the return that they're looking for is not necessarily market penetration, but rather the celebrity, right, that comes with me, right? The shine that comes with me being the one doing this deal for these players and being able to now, have more access to the individual players than I had before.
So Kevin, let me ask you, is it go ahead, Kevin, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a recruiting tool. Come on, let's be honest.
Yes.
That, if it's not a national deal and it's a local deal, 9 times out of 10, it's because we want this kid to come to our campus and play for us. In the past, giving the mom or dad or whoever the bag of money, you don't have to do that anymore. All you have to do is sign them up to an NIL, and it's legal. So that's what we're looking at now. And so the rules will change, and they'll look at this because they're already talking about, some people are cheating, some people are taking advantage of this. In the state of Washington, University of Washington is complaining because their legislation says that these kids can't participate in that the way that these other states are. So, it's going to be a federal issue if and when they bring it to Congress, because let's face it, all those Congress people went to certain schools. And so now they're going to be pressured by their constituents that, we want to have a level playing field. And right now it isn't level. And so at some point in time, they're going to have to do something, or this thing, as they say, is going to become more than the Wild Wild West.
Luke, I wonder if some companies, both local and national, have decided to invest with the goal of putting their hooks in a kid in case they do go to the league and blow up. And so have you seen any of these contracts, Luke? Have you seen, what are the terms of some of these deals just in terms of like time span? Have you seen any of those deals? Contracts?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a number of NIL deals from, mostly football, basketball, and a couple other sports as well. But I've seen some really big national deals and then some smaller local deals. Now, the thing is that, yes, you're absolutely right. Some people want that hook when they go to the pros, for those who will go to the pros, but most deals are ending, right? The deals will terminate when that player exhausts their eligibility. So they declare for the draft, that kind of thing. And if it doesn't include that, student athletes absolutely should push for that, because if you're a player that has a chance to go pro, you want to be able to have that free agency mindset from a marketing perspective that says, okay, I was worth this while I played in college, but now that I'm going pro, I'm actually worth this plus X. And so I want to make sure I have the right and opportunity to earn that additional compensation.
Okay. Sticking with college football, got a few minutes left here on Fourth and Justus. The coaching carousel in college football. There are rumors about Mel Tucker potentially being up for the LSU job. Rumors about Deion Sanders, I love Jackson State University. And I don't know if somebody made it up. Florida State may be interested. LSU may be interested. And lastly, Clay Helton, the former USC coach, is taking a job at Georgia Southern. Kevin, what's your take on the college football coaching carousel?
Well, usually you see, and it just started recently, coaches getting fired mid-season. But I haven't seen where coaches have been hired mid-season. So, you look at that, and that's unique. But now with people looking for jobs and wanting to hire people so they could get into that recruiting advantage, I think you'll see more of this. Now, I will say that we've talked about Deion before. And I think what Deion has done is that he's branded himself, but he's branded himself as a coach. And I think that, just from a recruiting standpoint, hey, it'd be hard to deny him if he sat in your house.
Right. Deion is the master showman.
Absolutely. And you know what? Florida State needs that now. If
They do.
anybody needs that, Florida State needs that. He could go home. He's embraced by that, and so I think that I wouldn't put it too far past them because
Right.
if I was in their shoes, I'd be looking at that.
Right. All right. Luke, coaching carousel. What's your take?
Yeah,
Gary
I
Patterson,
got it.
Gary Patterson stepped down this past week from TCU after 22 years there. And my son just went on a recruiting visit there a couple weeks ago, so I found that interesting. What's your take on all the comings and goings and midseason firings? And I don't think anybody has been Lane Kiffin yet, huh? Has anybody been fired at the airport yet?
Not yet, but we're only midway through the season. So,
Right,
I do think it's interesting about, thinking about Dion for a second. First and foremost, we know he's experiencing some health issues. Don't know exactly what those are. So definitely wish him the best in his recovery with whatever he's dealing with. But, when you think about him at like a Florida State, that, to Kevin's point, from a recruiting perspective would be great. From a donor perspective, right? Putting him out in front of donors and, getting that money to the school would be great. But at the end of the day, he's also got to be able to perform on the field as a coach. And, we'd have to see that. Now, he's done a great job at Jackson State so far. Obviously missed the last game or the last 2 games. But he'd have to be able to show that he could actually, win the game as well, because they need to win at Florida State. But, yeah, I think, what the interesting one that's going to be interesting to follow is Mel Tucker. And again, he's still got some tough games ahead of him this season. But if they end up, if he does something where they end up running the tables and do some damage, even just run the tables and get into the college football playoff, I mean, he will be probably one of the hottest, coaches in football that get considered. The question is does he stay or does he go, right? And Michigan State, they're going to want to be able to say, hey, let's put some money behind him and keep him for as long as possible. So it'll be interesting. I mean, think about it. You're playing in the Big Ten, so it's not like it's not like you're playing at some other Group of 5 school or something like that. You're on the main playing field every single weekend.
Right, and I want to remind people, LSU didn't win anything. I mean, Nick Saban turned LSU into a powerhouse.
Right.
Dabo Swinney turned Clemson into a powerhouse. So it's like, man, you built the powerhouse right there. So, and I wonder, Kevin, why do coaches leave? Is it ego, money? So why would somebody, using Mel as an example, after what he's built at Michigan State in 2 years, why would he be enticed by LSU?
So let's talk what Mel has done. I believe he has 40 transfers on that squad.
Oh, wow.
And I think if we're looking at the landscape of college football and basketball, I mean, a lot of these programs are built on transfers. Luke, look at your boy went from Wake Forest to Michigan State. And I mean, he's killing it at Michigan State. And Wake Forest has a number of transfers. So, this now is going to go from year to year. Prime example, and you brought that up, Dabo Swinney, Clemson. What did Dabo say? I'm not going to bring any transfers in here. Look at what's going on this year. Because he had problems on the offensive line, he could have brought some transfers in there, and I'm sure there were many people that wanted to transfer there. He might not be going through this now. So again, you have to be adaptable as a head coach now, and you have to really look at what's being offered to you, and then you have to take advantage of it. So, if I'm Mel Tucker, I mean, I have to look at what's going on next year. I have to look at my recruiting class, am I going to get those transfers? And can I win again like I won this year? Or do I go somewhere else where, let's be honest. A lot of this is about money and ego. Yeah. And so you go to USC, you go to LSU. I mean, that's football. It doesn't get any more football than
LSU ran out a national championship coach 20 months after he got a ring. 20 months after he got a ring. So that's the LSU situation. All right, before we get out of here, I want to go to Los Angeles, California, Inglewood. The Wood, there was a football game this past week. Inglewood played Morningside, their rival, and I'm familiar with those schools. I had 15 first cousins who went to school, who grew up in Inglewood. Inglewood beats Morningside. I want to get this right, 106-0. Justin Martin, a UCLA commit quarterback for Inglewood, passed for 13 touchdowns. The score was 59-0 at the end of the first quarter. I think, Luke, you said 86-0 at halftime. They said Morningside asked for a running clock early in the game. The refs wouldn't do it. But here's the ultimate insult. Up 104-0. the Inglewood head coach decides to go for a 2-point conversion and they get it. What the hell are we doing, Kevin?
Inglewood up to no good. Yeah, well, first of all, we talked about this and you just mentioned it. The quarterback's going to UCLA. So why does he play the whole game? And the question is, does he play everybody the whole game? I mean, this is an opportunity for a coach to let those people that aren't going to play in a game. So, that's my problem with that. The other thing is that there's got to be a beef because, they're from the same neighborhood and everything else. And for them to do this, that, they're not going to the club together. They're probably not going to church together. So there's something else there. But I do think it sends the wrong message because, there's winning and there's sportsmanship. And then there's something like this that, it just disrespectful to the game.
Luke, should this coach be fired? Real quick, Luke, should this coach be fired?
I don't know about fired. I think if I were the high school athletic director, we'd have to have some serious conversations and make some statements and just thinking about that, right? Because ultimately, like Kevin said, if we're in high school, we're talking about truly developing, sportsmanship, good sportsmanship, developing young people, right? And using sports in this amateur, most amateur way, using sports to be able to teach teamwork and leadership and grit and all these kinds of things. And that was just completely blown out, no pun intended, by this 106-point victory. But ridiculous. Something should happen to the coach because it's just that's just not, it's not what we're all about in high school.
All right, folks, we're reached toward the end of our show where I'll ask our thoughts ask our guests to give their final thoughts. And we'll start with you, Kevin.
To our colleague, Larisha Harrison, that, I understand the twins are becoming more healthy each and every day, but our prayers and thoughts are with her and that, they just keep getting strong and that she remains strong as well. So, Larisha, we're thinking about you.
All right. Luke?
Yeah, final thoughts, since yesterday was election day, I think it's always important. This is a show about race, politics, and sports. I think it's important to recognize and acknowledge what's happened across our country with various elections in different states, municipalities, school boards, etc. The school board where my kids go to school had a very contentious school board election. But the key here is that we got to participate. And, we just came off an election. As we look to, to next year, we've got to participate in the political process if we want our voices to be heard.
My final thoughts would be very succinct and quick. And I want to give these final thoughts to Ben Simmons. Man up. We will see you next time on Fourth and Just Us. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm your host, Leonard Moore, along with Kevin A.D. Anderson and Luke Feds Fedlam. Peace. Have an awesome week.